in Asia, there's a lot of like late night food. So you can basically have dinner and then karaoke, have another dinner. In the South, there's a lot of like mountains and pandas.
Who doesn't love cute pandas?
I love cute pandas.
Like
I watch panda video every day. I feel like the things that I really miss is when you go home, you have like a group of people who truly love you. They will give you this unconditional love that you can't receive anywhere else.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Orbital Media Podcast, where we learn about the people of the world, what they do, and their cultures, one interview at a time. Today we're going to be talking about China, the country, what it means to be Chinese, aspects of this part of the world, and today we're joined by Zihan Zhao. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay, Zihan, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
My name is Zihan Zhao, so I think the actual pronunciation is Zhao Zihan. I'm from China, and then I came to the States about 6 years ago, and I graduated at UCLA in 2021, where I met Chris, and now I'm an actor.
You're in LA. You've been here for about kind of 6 years, you said, and it's been sort of an interesting experience for you coming from China and coming to the United States. Were there people who maybe had less familiarity with the country and they had like questions for you and things like that, or has that never really come up?
That's a very interesting question. Definitely there's a lot of people who are not really familiar with China. They probably would be like less familiar with Chinese food.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you have sort of a situation? Well, we can talk about that in a second, actually. Chinese food and kind of that whole idea. So like for the whole country, right? Americans obviously have heard of Chinese food. They've generally had it. It's kind of become something of a cultural institution almost in a way. But like Chinese food as a whole, like how would you kind of describe that to someone, let's say, who had like never had it before? Or if they were like less familiar with it?
Yeah. I'd say, like authentic Chinese food is actually very different than American Chinese food. Although I really love American Chinese food, I think it's also good.
It's good. It is good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think the authentic Chinese food is very diverse. Like there are just so many of them, and sometimes like people don't really have not heard about things that are like hot pot, or like a lot of like street food. Like you can't really find it in the US. I feel like the taste is also very different than American Chinese food, because American Chinese food is more just kind of sweeter in general. Okay. But like the authentic Chinese food can be like so many different ways.
Are there, now even like with the US, right, or any big country where you've got certain regional varieties, but there'll still be kind of national dishes, right? Where it's like kind of doesn't matter where you are, there are gonna be certain, stereotypical American food would be like a hamburger, right? Like you're gonna find that kind of everywhere. It's not like a regional dish. Okay. For China, are there sort of like national dishes in a way? And I don't mean just like ingredients, like, like this type of vegetable or starch, but like an actual dish where like kind of wherever you are, like you might be able to find that, or is it like very much region by region with food?
Can I say rice?
That's fine. Yeah, well, I was thinking that actually, that like you're gonna find rice probably everywhere.
No, I'm kidding. I think like the national food is definitely dumpling.
Okay.
It's also very international. Like it doesn't, like I feel like it's for like the globally, like all the Chinese people, it doesn't matter where they live, like on Chinese New Year, they will eat dumplings. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty common, universal.
Okay. And the fillings for those can be like, it could be vegetable, pork, beef, chicken.
Yeah, you can have very different stuffings.
And whatever. But essentially that concept of it's a starch wrapped around some kind of filling is like pretty universsul.
Starch?
Starch being like something made out of grain or something made out of rice. So a carbohydrate, like, you're making the shell
flour,
of the dumpling. Yeah,
right?
you're making something out of flour, whether it's rice flour or wheat flour or something, and that's wrapped around like a meat or a vegetable or a meat and vegetable kind of filling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other than dumplings, like anything else that would be?
Noodles.
Yeah, noodles. Okay. So
Noodles.
yeah, yeah.
There's also like so many different kinds of noodles.
Interesting. And does that vary also by region in terms? I mean, I'd assume like the
Yeah,
kind
a
of like
little
what
bit.
flavors you're gonna get with noodles, but that base at least of.
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's definitely. I feel like in southern China, people usually will eat more like rice noodle, but in the north, we usually just eat like I think it's made of wheat.
Yeah, I understand that is a bit of a difference with diet in China. That the south half of China is much more based around rice, and the northern parts are much more based around like wheat.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's interesting. And then, yeah, I mean, I guess just in your personal experience when it comes to food in China versus in the U.S., you mentioned that food in China is much less sweet. There's less like of a not quite sugary, but that sort of sweet and sour flavor in it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you've noticed, like comparing American Chinese food to actual
The actual
Chinese
actual Chinese food can be really spicy. Yeah, a lot of like I think also like the spicy level in Chinese food is way more way higher than American Chinese food.
Okay. Yeah. And then sort of are there different, I guess, regional variations that sort of you're familiar with Chinese food? Like you could say, oh, this region of China food is more like this, and this region it has a different kind of.
Yeah, of course, because like China is a huge country, and then the culture is super different. It's also because geographically, like they have different lands. For example, as we just talked about, like northern people, the food is mostly based on wheat. I think what happens is probably because of the land over there. It's more like easier to grow wheat, as opposed to in the south, it's easier to grow rice.
Yeah.
And other than that, I feel like in northern food is more like just saltier. It's kind of salty and it could be like spicy, but I'd say like in the south there's also like different parts of south, right? So for example like area like Shanghai and Zhejiang and like Guangdong. So they're very close. They were literally just by ocean.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of seafood, and it's definitely not spicy.
Okay.
And the taste is a little bit sweet. In Shanghai food is very sweet, but Guangdong is different. It's not that sweet. But if you go to like southwest, where is Chongqing and Chengdu, is very spicy.
Okay.
But honestly, I think Sichuan, I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Sichuan food,
It's
yeah.
literally the most popular food in China.
Yeah.
Like it literally.
It is, okay.
Yeah, Sichuan, like you can find it everywhere in China. Like that's like, I'd say, it's very, very common. Like if you want to find like a Sichuan restaurant, it's just everywhere in China.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
very interesting, yeah. Yeah, I am a little familiar with that, and I think there are a couple spots now in the U.S. that are serving sort of more like basically spicy Sichuan noodles. Is kind of, you're seeing a few of these spots pop up kind of in certain big American cities.
Just in West LA, Sichuan Impression.
Yeah.
And there is also another place in Brentwood. It's kind of like, because I feel like American people also like spicy food.
I think people are starting to come around to it.
Especially in California.
Yeah, spicy food in the U.S. is sort of an interesting thing because the stereotype is that I would say Americans, compared to certain culture, generally non-Western cultures that have spicier food, I would say the stereotype is that Americans aren't very good at handling their spice, with a couple of notable exceptions. Mostly, I would say around sort of like Louisiana and parts of the South, where you do, and then also the Southwest. So like New Mexico and Arizona, where you have much more of an influence with like chilies and stuff like that. Yeah. But the general stereotype is that American food tends to not be spicy. And that you have to sort of tell Americans like, oh, this food's going to be spicy, just make sure you're okay with that. And by the standards of people from, again, not all food in China is spicy, but like the fact that you'll have popular spicy dishes, I think Americans are normally less used to that, but
Yeah.
they're starting to younger people are maybe starting to come around to it a little bit more.
Right, exactly. I've heard of it actually. That kind of just reminded me of two of my friends that I've like they're American and they've been to China, and they're like both of them have said that like Chinese food is too spicy for them. Yeah, it's very interesting because I grew up in China. I've never thought it's too spicy because for me it's just like everyday food. Yeah, I also put chili like when I cook food. Yeah, but then they would say it's too spicy for them.
Americans, I think, generally would not be putting chili in something that they're just cooking normally.
Right.
That would be like, you need like a warning that there's going to be like chili pepper or spice in, chili oil in whatever you're eating. Yeah. And also, quick aside, obviously we are, in case you can see, we're drinking green tea, which is from China, which was brought very generously by Zihan.
Of course.
Thank you very much. It's very
pretty
nice.
good,
It's very nice.
actually.
Yeah, it's got a nice sort of soft, very smooth, I think, really enjoyable.
It smells really good.
Yeah, a really light, subtle kind of green tea flavor. So yeah, I mean, I could talk a long time about food and different regional variations with food in China. You mentioned, so Sichuan food is very popular around the whole country. Are there any other, provinces where like that style of food is very popular nationally?
Like very, very popular. I'd say, like Guangdong.
Okay, yeah.
It's very popular.
Yeah.
Like you can have it here, like everywhere too.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that of sort of my sense of a lot of American Chinese food, a lot of that comes from Guangdong.
Yeah,
specifically.
Yeah.
Not entirely, but sort of areas kind of around there. Yeah. And do you have a favorite dish or favorite types of food?
Hot pot.
Hot pot's your favorite? Okay.
Hot pot and skewers.
Hot pot and skewers.
Lamb skewers.
Okay.
Oh, lamb skewers is also very popular, but it's from north.
I was going to say, so lamb, I think for American Chinese food, you almost never hear about lamb in American Chinese food.
Right.
But I've learned that it's not common everywhere, but there are parts of China where you do see lamb show up in dishes. Is that more of I would assume like an inland, like north parts of the country?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Especially like for the part that's really close to Mongolia.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there's Inner Mongolia is actually in China. So that's their lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What about in terms of drink? In terms of things that people drink. Obviously, tea is hugely popular, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of, I'd say the stereotype, right, is it would be green tea, right? That's kind of what people would, I could imagine that would be the most popular, other than, obviously water, like the most popular drink that people have would be green tea.
Yeah.
But like,
totally.
Is there something a bit more interesting, beyond just green tea, like other kind of drinking habits you'd say that?
I'm not the perfect person to answer this question because I don't drink alcohol. But honestly, I would say that like in China, people drink a lot. There's I'm just gonna say anything that's like based on my knowledge.
Yeah, no, of
like
course,
about like a baijiu, you've heard of it?
I've never had it. Could you tell everyone what that is?
It's just kind of like a clear liquid. It looks like just water, but it tastes really. It tastes like spicy, and usually it's very intense alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess they're made of, like different crops, like wheat.
Yeah.
I think made of wheat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not really like a perfect person to explain it, but definitely there's like a lot of different types of white wine. And there's also a lot of like stuff that's kind of like, you have to like put a lot of herbs in the wine, and it should be like fermented because it has like some like a medical function in those wine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm actually not familiar with this at all. So is this like wine, like, again, if you're not sure, it's totally fine, but like, is this made from like grapes in the sense of like literal wine, or is it?
I don't think it's made of grapes. I think it's still kind of like made of with some different
like a grain,
wheat,
like a
like
type
a
of
type
grain.
of grain.
Okay.
But then the process, I don't quite understand the process, but basically you can always see a lot of families. They have like a clear bottle of this type of wine, and then you can see a lot of different herbs in it.
Okay.
And sometimes, like I feel like people just drink it for health.
What about other aspects, like let's say a family or like social life, and what that, again, at an absolute, like the biggest national level you could think of, like broad similarities, which is a hard question, I know, but
it's a very hard question.
It's a hard question to answer. I get, we're going to be doing a series on regional variations in China, but at a national level, broadly, if we compared this, to like the U.S., let's say. Family life or like social life, what people do for fun, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, I think first of all, I think like there's like something really universal in China, just family value. I think that's something that's really like I'd say like most Chinese people would put their family at the primary. And usually they just, when I was in China, we hang out with family a lot.
Yeah.
Like usually you probably have like a family, like a gathering with everybody, like at least once a month. Mm-hmm. Like you just go out for dinner or for lunch, or just like go to spas. Like that's a lot. And we're all, generally speaking, I think Chinese people are very, Chinese families are very close. Mm-hmm. So like my mom and my aunt, they talk every day. Mm-hmm. And then I talk to my mom every day. Mm-hmm. And then, we just like do everything all together. And that people help each other. We're very close.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also not just a focus on your nuclear family, so, mom, dad, brother, sister, but the extended family too, with aunts, uncles, cousins.
Yeah, with everybody. Because my mom and my dad, both of them had like a big family, and then they just always hang out.
But then what do you also really like about it, and what do you maybe miss, about not having that kind of family structure?
I feel like the things that I really miss is that when you go home, you have a group of people who truly love you. Mm-hmm. They will give you this unconditional love that you can't receive anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So that's something, it's just that I value the most. Yeah, I find it's like really beautiful when you just go back home and then you find just like everybody just loves you so much. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah. Are there other things like that? Things that you, now that you're not in China, that you really miss, and that that really stick out to you as like important aspects of your culture that you don't have as much here?
Well, I feel like definitely sometimes I feel like a little bit lonely here because I don't really have my families or a lot of friends. Like definitely I would like really miss the time, like when you have some craves for food, you can just call somebody and like, hey, let's go there, let's just go have some rice noodles or things like that, like very small things.
Well, so you mentioned big cities actually. I'd be curious to learn a little bit more about that. So obviously you grew up in Harbin, right, which is the city in northeastern China. So again, not all of China obviously, but let's say big city life in China or kind of urban culture. Do you have like a really quick rundown on like some of what that looks like? Let's say compared to like the US.
Of course. Wow, there's like so many differences. Mm-hmm. For example, I feel like social life in terms of social life.
Yeah, let's talk about social life.
So it's like how do they do for fun? Like I feel like there's definitely restaurants. That's like very there's not like big of a difference. Yeah. Like people go out for dinners, and other than that, like people. Like I think American people will go to a bar or like like that's like pretty common. But in China, people would go to somewhere like a karaoke.
Yeah.
And bars are less. But if you got like a group of friends, people will go to like a club and karaoke. things like that. And then you see people just like, and then there's a lot of late night food, which is very different than what is in LA, because there's a lot of like restaurants in LA just close at probably like 9 or 10. But in China, I think it's like in Asia.
Yes.
It usually like there's a lot of like late night food, so you can basically have dinner and then karaoke, have another dinner in like around midnight or past midnight.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is one. I'd say probably one of the only places maybe is New York, where I'd say New York is a city that has more. I mean, you've got the party cities, sort of like New Orleans and Vegas and stuff. But for like a major city where like millions of people live there and there's a lot of industry and kind of regular jobs and stuff. New York does, I think, have the most of that. But absolutely, a lot of other big American cities, like again, even in LA, like they will. By 2 a.m., like nothing's happening. And certainly even really by like 11 or 12, like not much is going on. Aside from like the few places that people go for like late night stuff, if they're going clubbing or whatever. But aside from that, there's not like, restaurants aren't going to be open at midnight or like 11 p.m. But that's very different in China for a lot of, and not just like someone on the street, like you mean like an indoor place that you can go and like have a meal.
Like
Interesting.
An indoor place that you can go. And it's very common. I feel like it's not just in big cities, in small cities, like Harbin, where I grew up, I think you can still find places that you can eat after midnight or whatever. There's like there are definitely, like a different specific types of late night food.
Interesting. So it seems like then just like general nightlife culture is a lot stronger. Would that be fair to say, like for the country as a whole, let's say, compared to large parts of the US?
I think so.
Yeah, because I mean, my feeling is large parts of the US is frankly actually very much not a late night culture. Like, even big cities aside, like, people, I think they tend to wake up early and they kind of tend to go to bed a little bit earlier. It sounds like versus in China. Or sort of, East Asia kind of in general. Yeah. And then, and you also mentioned social life. Like, I would say, right, for the US, for people over 21, like, going to a bar is almost like the most, I almost think of it as like, it's just like the most default thing to do. You just go to a bar. Obviously you have karaoke in specific areas. It's not a huge cultural thing though, I would say. That's more like, you'll have it, but you'll probably have it in like a Koreatown or something. A little pocket here and there in certain big cities.
It's
not an everyday thing. You're not gonna find karaoke everywhere. And certainly late night restaurants, the only thing you'd really have, I think, is like, you'd have fast food. Like, you might have fast food.
Like Denny's.
Yeah, like Denny's, right. It might be a very...
Wendy's and Denny's.
You might have that. Well, you might have like a McDonald's or something that might be open. But again, even then, there might be select places that are open late, but they're not like... Sit-down restaurants aren't really a thing that like you could go to at like... Except for like an all-night diner. That might be, again, a regional thing. But a lot of places like... They're close. You're not going to go to a place that's open at midnight and like sit down and have a meal. Yeah, that does seem very different. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the geography of China?
The geography of China is very diverse. Like there's definitely, a lot of plain area and plateau area like Tibet. Like that's like highly recommended if anyone wants to go to China to go on a trip. Like Tibet is like really, really beautiful. Like if you go on, just take a road trip to go to Tibet, you can see so many different climates or like different views. It's just so beautiful.
What about other parts like the south versus north, kind of, or just like the weather, climate, weather, kind of the land?
I think, like in the south, it's definitely more humid. Like in the north, it's dry, dry. And, like in the south, there's a lot of like mountains and pandas.
Okay, so they live in the south, right?
Yeah, they live in the
south.
Yeah, maybe some of them are like in the kind of like in the middle part, but I think maybe like majority of them live in the south, with a lot of bamboos.
Who doesn't love cute pandas?
I love cute pandas. Like I watch panda video every day.
Everybody.
Like literally.
Everybody loves cute pandas.
They're like pets. They're so cute,
big.
but they're not pets at all.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, but they're not violent, right? They're just like big kind of.
Oh my God, you have no idea.
Oh, are they?
They can be violent.
Oh, they can be. Okay.
They're not like aggressive animals, but they're very they have like a very strong property. Can I say property?
Yeah.
Protective, like it just don't go their like land.
Okay.
If you're going to like their like small property, their home, they're gonna attack you.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they're very protective animals, but they live alone.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they're like super cute.
Yeah. It's interesting. I thought pandas. Yeah, I thought they were these very sort of like they're bears, but they didn't like defend. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, obviously they're still animals that they would defend themselves.
What happened? Like this is based on my research about panda bears. They're just like really protective, and they also very strong. Yeah, like if you put them with tiger or sort of like a big animals, they wouldn't feel like weak. Yeah, that's why they can like survive. So panda bears actually like one of those oldest animals. They're like really, they have a really long history.
Really?
They have like 8 million histories on Earth.
Oh, wow. They've been around for 8 million years?
Yeah, yeah. Google them. Like, but ancient times, like they're smaller,
okay,
and they're like really, like they're like aggressive animals. And then they became like eating bamboo, so all about cuteness,
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I know very little about pandas, honestly.
Oh my God, I have to look it up.
Are there other fun facts you can tell me about panda bears?
They're just like so cute, and then they're like really quiet animals. But then they can be really aggressive when you like try to get close to them when they have babies. But then it's hard for panda bear to conceive or have babies. That's why they're so like kind of like in danger these years.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. That they're basically like not reproducing.
No, it's just
enough?
hard. Like
Yeah.
generally speaking, it's just hard for them to conceive.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think so. I don't know. I don't quite understand it, but it's just like, and it's also hard for them to raise little babies.
Okay.
Yeah, and they only have one baby. Like it's not like other animals you can like I feel like have like you can have a lot of like cats at the same time, but they only have one or two.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're almost like people in that regards, where they have like one, offspring at a time. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of things with animals I don't actually know. Like, I don't know, like, how many, I think bears tend to have more than one, but I guess not. Like, bears would have just one cub.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true for other bears. I don't even know. All these things I realize I don't know about things. So now I'm thinking about it.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, anyway. Well, anyway, yeah, I mean, I think it's been a pleasure, Zihan. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about China. If I see anyone, if you have questions for us, leave it down below. And of course, Zihan, where can we find you? What projects are you working on? Your social media handles, whatever you want to kind of tell everyone where they can, follow you and kind of see your work.
Oh yeah, of course. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok. So my Instagram handle is Layla Zihan Z. You can see the subtitle.
Yeah, we'll put it down on the screen.
And then my TikTok handle is also Layla Zihan. You can see here.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? So it's Instagram and TikTok and anything else? And those are the
If anybody
ones.
wants to learn Mandarin, hit me up on Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah. Okay. So she's good Mandarin instructor. Yeah. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Zihan.
Thank you, Chris.
And
thank you for having me.
Of course. And we'll see you all in the next episode.